Hi everyone, and welcome to AFL Asia's official podcast, How Good's Footy in Asia. I'm your co-host Matty Gale, based in Osaka, Japan, and our co-host over in Saigon, Vietnam is Billy Crang. Welcome to the podcast, Bill. Great to have you.
Thanks, Matty. Still here.
How you feeling, mate? You've had a bit of COVID in the last week.
I went to footy training on Saturday and ran up a bit of a fever straight after that, which isn't totally uncommon. It's 35 degrees. Sometimes you do go a bit hard and you feel just thrashed at the end of it. But after an hour or two, I thought I better just do the test. And sure enough, it's been through the office it's everywhere here in Vietnam at the moment. So yeah, positive after footy. Let everybody know. Just trying to kick it again now, working from home.
Yeah. I know it's ripped through the Swannies, both in Saigon and in Hanoi. What's the amount of active cases per day in Saigon, for instance?
Yeah. So you do active cases, which given that I don't know how long a case stays active for these days, but I've had a look since I was positive. Vietnam's doing 160,000 positives a day, and I wouldn't be included in that. So hopefully no one from the People's Party is watching. I haven't reported myself because I'm obviously planning to get a negative and get straight back into it as soon as possible. So 160,000 positives reported per day. I dare say, half wouldn't be. Some might need to report for work. So I don't know the stuff around that, but it's pretty full on. But the hospitals are fine. So this obviously with the climate and the variant, we're not seeing anything to really stress about.
Agree. Yeah, we've got about 600,000 active cases, and I've just looked at take out about 4,600 yesterday, and we had about 1,500. But that's a pretty low sort of day. Mondays is a low count, and generally there's an extra 20 or 30% added on Tuesday.
By Friday.
So I've actually started watching it, and hopefully it's working towards that general virus that used to get before COVID. So I think the strength of it's starting to weaken a little bit as it's gone throughout the global pandemic, but it's looking like we're coming out towards an endemic, which would be fantastic so we can get some footy underway in our region. How's the weather over your way, Bill? Just before we get things really kick-started.
Just looking out the window, it's pretty stock standard, mid-30s, sunny. Don't think there'll be a storm later. It's very Saigon sort of day.
Yeah, I'm actually enjoying. We've gone from snow maybe 3 weeks ago, some snow flurries, to t-shirt and shorts. Well, 20 degrees is t-shirt and shorts for me in Osaka, given we've got the humidity at a pretty decent level already. It feels like rainy season's just around the corner. But today I'm going to pay homage to the great Shane Warne and Rod Marsh,
Saw that.
who recently died since our previous podcast, both within 24 hours of each other.
Yeah.
And obviously Warney dying in Koh Samui in our backyard is pretty huge, and still hearing people talking about it as if it happened yesterday, and it's been almost 10 days since he passed. But to the great Rod Marsh, the old World Series cricket T-shirt with the huge collar, love it. So I bought the shirt many years ago and never envisaged that I'd be able to fit into it, given that it's extra large.
There you go.
I've been triple or double extra large majority of the time in Asia. I can wear it, and also my Australia coffee cup made in China, as they do. Let's get into things in a more professional manner and get back on track. So footy around the region is really starting to come back into the in a huge way, which is fantastic to see. As was mentioned on our last podcast with Jack a couple of weeks ago, the Bali Geckos and the Bali Masters is back. So already, I think 22 or 24 teams have indicated that they'd like to join the competition. Bali itself has opened up. I think they posted a story on their Facebook yesterday about Jetstar with their flight offers into Bali. So that's going to be huge if we can get that on board. We'll talk more about the Bali Masters shortly. Cambodian Eagles have been back for a couple of weeks now. I think their Auskick's been in action for over a month. Maybe they kicked off late January. Hong Kong Dragons are in a bit of a pickle at the moment, Bill. There's a pretty strict sort of lockdown with the Chinese government in Hong Kong. And they've actually still got that 3 weeks quarantine if you do enter. I'm actually teaching a student tonight who's brushing up on his English skills. He's moving with his job with Panasonic. So I teach Panasonic Business English, and he's aware that he's got to do 3 weeks quarantine. I don't think I could handle it, but all the best to our friends and family over in the Hong Kong Dragons and the Hong Kong Auskick. Hopefully you guys can get back to playing some footy soon. Jakarta Bintangs have plenty of momentum, particularly with their local development and their women's football this year, getting some really good numbers on the training track, which is fantastic. Over here in Japan, it's been a bit of an interesting few months. I don't think there's been any footy played or any training that's taken place since the AFL Japan A-League Grand Final last year, which was won by the Komazawa Magpies in the local university derby back in, I think, a week before Christmas, which is huge. There is talk. We've got an Anzac Day tournament, which I'm heading up at the moment with AFL Japan, which we're hoping to host on April 23rd, which is going to be, I think most teams will play that Anzac Day fixture around then. We'll probably talk more in detail in the coming weeks about Anzac Day clashes throughout Asia. Not much action from Laos or Macau. Malaysian Warriors are in their 30th year this year, so they've really hit the ground running. And in their 25th year anniversary, they were lucky enough to score their maiden Asian champs victory, which was huge for their club. Might be a bit tougher this year in their 30th year, but at least we'll hopefully get an Asian champs out of the way. Nothing happening in Myanmar. I think that's a lot to do with COVID plus the political situation and what's happening internally there, civil war-wise. Philippine Eagles, this has been a huge story across Asia. A 2-year hiatus of not training outside is just, it must be the biggest length of time that any club internationally has had to endure throughout this pandemic. And geez, haven't they come back in huge numbers? They've had their first Auskick training session since 2018, which the PAFL organised in conjunction with the senior training last Saturday. So kudos to all the Philippine Eagles and the Philippine AFL over there. It's been a tremendous fight back, and well done to everyone involved. The Singapore Wombats, they had the first, what's it called? Slim Bats, Bill?
Fit Bats?
Fit Bats, that's it. The Fit Bats campaign. Yeah. So their pre-season competition that they do internally, which involves weight loss, fat loss, time, I think the timing that they do with a group of 4. So all of this is taken into consideration and prizes to be won. So huge for them to be back. Thailand, they had a fixture early in the year. I can't remember what happened. I think they just had the usual yellow and blacks and their females, but they're actually doing their internal draft either tomorrow night or Thursday, where basically the 2 teams are picked for the year. So you could be on yellow one year and black the next, and vice versa throughout your domestic competition in Thailand. So it'd be great to see how that all pans out. And they've got huge numbers, and their women's footy has become quite big as well. Bill, just out of self-interest, and I doubt it's probably ever taken place, because Vietnam Swans and Thailand have their own Anzac Day fixtures. But have you ever played down at Kanchanaburi?
Yeah, I have twice actually. And like you said, self-interest. But to me, they were pretty ripping stories both times. The first time was my first ever footy tour. I'd landed in Vietnam a couple of months prior, and had no interest in footy really. And a couple of guys had just dragged me out to a training, and I think it just so happened the next week or two we were on the road to Kanchanaburi, and so I stumbled into it, not knowing what to expect. And it's one of the more magical footy tours you could ever do. The obviously the Burma Deaf Railway. We had a boat cruise on the River Kwai after the game. We got slaughtered in the game, maybe about 100 points. I can barely remember that, but I can remember everything else. The dawn service at the cemetery in Kanchanaburi. And it was at that dawn service that Fabo, the Swans kind of president at the time, and obviously big part of our club's history, but also AFL Asia's history, he leant over to me and said, "Oh, I think we could do this in Vietnam." And obviously I was pretty fresh off the boat, so I didn't get the sort of geopolitical layout and the Vietnam War, how it all fitted together. But sure enough, the next year we went down to Vung Tau, again, not knowing the significance, just knowing we were in the, a region that had been a part of a war and just trying to do something as an Anzac Day tribute. And little do we know, we get Stan Middleton, one of the vets who actually played in the league here during the war, saying, that field that you played on last weekend for Anzac Day, we played 5 premiership seasons during our time stationed. We were scattered throughout the south of Vietnam, but we were in Vung Tau whenever we were, not active. So they would come back to a base in Vung Tau that was non-combative, and they could let their hair down a bit. And they were playing footy of a weekend and playing full seasons. So from that, a whole heap of vets sort of have followed our path and come to our games, similar to what we saw in Kanchanaburi, where some of the World War I vets were. So it's a huge event from the Tigers' perspective, obviously, and I've seen it twice. We also went back a few years ago and we did a home and away series, which we won over there, and then they barely even bothered to show up here because we'd already put them in their place. But the Kanchanaburi stuff is phenomenal. The significance. We were there. Not too many of the World War I vets, I think, could get there anymore, but a lot of the grandkids still come up. But we were there when there were 4 or 5 of them still, and it was absolutely inspirational to have those guys in their 90s walk out to give best on ground medals and stuff like that, and to a T, thank us for entertaining them, which was obviously a bit embarrassing when you spent the whole day hearing the stories of what they kind of went through for their country. So yeah, incredible. Kanchanaburi is incredible, and it's given us as the Swans a whole heap of momentum that's been great for us to build our own little story on the side. So it's incredible.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'll come back to you in a minute though, Bill.
Yep.
I did fail to mention the Singapore Sharks. They've mentioned that they're coming back to the fray in the coming weeks. So looking forward to them getting back for season 2022. One of the biggest Auskick and junior development centres in the world, not just outside of Australia, but in the world, comparative to any sporting club or football club and junior development program in Australia. Bill, I'm going to throw it back to you straight away. Let's go through the Vietnam Swans, your home club. Plenty happening over in Hanoi and Saigon as well.
Yeah, so despite these COVID cases, the government's definitely come to a bit of a play on type realization. So where Hanoi is catching up, basically finishing off the GAA AFL season from last year, which is coming to its conclusion. I think this weekend they've actually finished the AFL component, which was 3 rounds of male and female, and now they're doing the 6th round, which is Gaelic. So they've brought together the Hanoi Celts and the Vietnam Swans in Hanoi and played a 6-round season from late last year. It was pushed back, obviously, due to COVID, and then late last year, and just finishing that up now. And then down here in Saigon, we are 2 weeks away from starting our 2nd season of the Saigon AFL in the format that it is. We've played a 1-weekend tournament a few times before, but this is proper season through the year. We've only scheduled the first 3 rounds in the first half of the year, which fits around Anzac Day as well for us. And in the second half of the year, we're not sure whether we'll do another 3 or 6, depending on how the rest of Asia is looking and getting out and about. So we learned from the last 2 years to not schedule too far in advance for now. And then the other big one is obviously Anzac Day for us, which it's going to be domestic, unfortunately, but hopefully this is the last domestic Anzac Day we do. And we will play an internal game similar to the Thailand Tigers. Like our training tops this year will be yellow on one side and a traditional Swans red and black and white on the other side. So we'll play in those two strips in male and female, but we'll also play in our league teams for a couple of more sort of fun mixed games on the day down in Vung Tau. And we're also working with the local Gaelic clubs, the Saigon Gales down here in Saigon, to get them down, play a few Gaelic games as well, just gets the numbers to the field. And so all pretty optimistic here, where we're seeing things sort of progressively getting up and about and looking forward to the season. The big thing we keep telling our players is you need to start to pull yourself together, because we are going to play some international games later in the year. So let's really hope that actually comes through.
Yeah, let's hope so. Fingers crossed.
Touch on one from the... Sorry, Matty. Ruth's already claiming that the Tigers will win the Asian Champs if no one can travel. And I guess they're played in Thailand. But we'll get there, whether we have to get a bus. But, yeah, that won't be happening, Ruth.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Asian Champs a bit later. Rook Kaman's joining us there from Thailand, from Chiang Mai. One of our lovely family friends there, Rook Kamanis. Let's move over to China now. It was only a few weeks ago we posted that the Beijing Bombers were having a bit of a kick and a catch in the snow. A couple of one of their families, I believe. Not much happening out of Shanghai, so we need to do a knock on Trethaway's door and check out what Treth's doing over there with the Shanghai Tigers. We haven't had much out of them since 2020, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see what's happening with the Shanghai Tigers, the Guangzhou Scorpions, and their Guangdong Football League. They should be very close to kicking off the rest of their 2021-2022 season. I think they got a few rounds away prior to Christmas, and they're looking to finish off their season proper, which was meant to finish in May, I believe. I'm not entirely certain. AFL Pakistan obviously had their national interleague tournament in late January or maybe even early February. That was a huge success, and it's actually gone gangbusters on our social media platforms. It'll be interesting to see what's happening over in India, given that they made a really successful start with their new leadership program, which is being run in conjunction with their AFL Asia Development Grants Program. And I guess some of these development grants program, which was received by 9 countries throughout Asia, it'll be interesting to see where they're at and whether they can get them off the ground with the COVID current space that we're in. So that's about it from around the region, Bill. I guess the big one at the moment is the Bali Masters, which is really, I guess, getting everyone's ears lit up a bit. And it's the thinking, well, the reality is this could be the first tournament that is been internationally run in Asia since the pandemic, which is going to be absolutely huge. And there's going to be a lot of commentary around it from our platforms as well as the Bali Geckos. And this will be a bit of a suck and see in this space as to where things are going to go in the second half of the year. So you can imagine if Asian Champs were to go ahead right now, the amount of clubs that would be stuck at home, which would be Hong Kong, Macau, and basically the China teams. I know from at the moment, I think there's 3 days quarantine on the way back into Japan. I'm not sure about other countries, and that's going to be up to their governments as well. So each individual government are more than likely to change between now and the second half of the year. So it's a bit of a watch this space. Very, very interesting times. Very encouraging, but the pessimistic person me also thinks, well, this could go belly up again real quick. So we won't count our lucky stars until we actually get there, or if we do get there. So let's move along to the AFL season now. AFL Asia is running its first ever inaugural tipping competition, official tipping competition. I think Keezy ran one, just a basic one a few years back, but nothing that brought the region together. Bill, I'm going to let you, as you're one of the coordinators of this particular tipping comp, can you give us a rundown and indication what's happening and how people can join?
Yeah, so it came, it's pretty easy to join. It's the ESPN footy tipping platform, so it's free. Takes a minute to sign up. You can get the app on your phone if you want to make sure you don't miss getting your tips done every week. Now, why has the AFL Asia Advisory Board gone down this path? The biggest reason is to get some combined engagement across our country borders. And so the more people we can have actively getting involved in things like this, the more we can share across the region, but also just look as a bigger kind of body. So we've got most of the Swannies on board, and hopefully most of the other clubs can get a lot of the players on board. It's a lot of fun. The main prize is a bag of Sherrins, which we're just looking at our Swans order for 2022, and they're not cheap Sherrins. So it's 10 Sherrins, which any club's going to love having those on board for 2023 and going forward. So there is a aside from bragging rights, there's a pretty big carrot being dangled out there for the club that can take out the prize. So what that would be, if you happen to win, you'll be able to nominate any club in AFL Asia, and they will win the footy prize. So that'll be, as things get tight towards the end of the season, there'll be a bit of heat. There'll be plenty of advice coming from the bleachers. You know, the leading guy in your club. Everybody will be trying to tell them how to see it home and take out the prize. So it's pretty easy to sign up. Like I said, there's an article on AFL Asia's website, and we're doing Facebook posts just to remind everyone throughout this week. So I think that's pretty clear. Takes 30 seconds on the ESPN sign up.
Yep, I think it'll be my parting gift to the Osaka Dingoes. I'll give them the 10 Sherrins.
Bag of footies.
Yeah, that'll be my parting gift. All right, let's move along to round one. I think this is probably, we say it every year, it's the most anticipated start to any season, but this is a genuine different feel given the past 2 COVID seasons, and there's an anticipation that this could be the record-breaking round of attendance of any AFL round throughout the history of the game, which would be fantastic. And the AFL's done a splendid job putting the fixture for round one together. They've put all the Melbourne teams in round one against each other, and the interstate teams match up as well. Let's just quickly go through the games themselves and our tips. Melbourne and the Bulldogs, grand final rematch. What a grand final it was. You could have gone either way when the Bulldogs were up by 3 goals, almost midway through the third quarter, and then it was just bang, 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 and just got blown out of the water by the Melbourne Demons. And well done to the D's. First premiership since 1954 is absolutely phenomenal. Bill, what can you tell us about Melbourne versus the Bulldogs and your tip? And are you still celebrating the victory from last year?
You could almost argue you haven't been able to celebrate it yet. You know, I was locked down in the countryside on the day, and then obviously back in Saigon now. But I can imagine, you know, like my family and everybody, this game for the Melbourne fans is going to be massive. Being able to go to the G, obviously unfurl a flag. A lot of those people have never seen it in their lifetime. And the fact, you must give credit, the AFL have done an incredible job putting together such epic games for the first round. And it makes me a little bit nervous having to sort of front up to pack of snarling Bulldogs straight up front, because they'll be absolutely hurting still. They've just done 6 months of grind with one sort of thing still burning in the front of their mind. So yeah, they'll be coming hard. In terms of, I think both teams are relatively healthy. I'm going to stick with Melbourne, just because they've finally earned a little bit of faith, so need to maintain it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, Rook Kamenis. I'm going with the D's as well. I think they'll just be too strong. I think it'll be a pretty decent arm wrestle. Both teams look quite rusted in the Amy Community Series, so I think it'll be a close one originally, but I wouldn't be surprised if Melbourne really pull away in the last quarter in 10 minutes. Now, I'm a little bit sceptical of the Bulldogs at the moment, and I'll go through that a little bit more in detail, but if Snorton Norton, the astronaut, doesn't fire up forward, I know they've got a lot of midfield contributions right across the field that can kick multiple goals, but So that loss of the other key for the big left footer, Josh Bruce, I think they haven't even felt that yet. They got away with the last 3 games of the minor round series and the finals. So I think we play that out over the course of the season. That might come back to bottom a bit. So we've both got Melbourne round 1. Carlton Richmond. This fixture has been heavily weighted in Richmond's favour since 2013, and that's the last time that Carlton actually defeated Richmond. That's the last time Carlton actually played in a final series, albeit they got in because of the Eston drugs saga. So this is probably the most competitive Carlton has looked for a long, long time. So under new coach Michael Voss, got several new players. Chera comes into the lineup in the pivot there. Georgie Hewitt's had a fantastic summer, gives them a lot of grunt at ground level. Patrick Cripps, the word on the street is that he's back to his career best form, and I hope he is as well. And then you've got to throw Sammy Walsh back into the fray in the coming weeks once he overcomes his syndesmosis injury. And Charlie Curnow, what can he bring up for Richmond? However, for me, they've gone back and they've just got everyone nice and fit. They've got they've got a really good defender over there from North Melbourne. And he's come across, and he could be the Brian Lake story there, as they brought across Brian Lake. And I think that's a really underrated recruit. They've shuffled the deck with a few players, and they're going to blood some youngsters as well. So young Gibcus has been given his debut game. He'll probably play the 3rd tall defender. And Hugo Smith is going to, I think he's going off a wing or a halfback flank as well. Interesting to see how Dean Rioli plays this year off a halfback flank, maybe doing the similar role as to their running Muslim back flanker there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm tipping both clubs to have a fantastic year. Can Carlton win? Yes, they can, but I think Richmond will be able to make a statement, and they'll make a huge statement. And I don't think it might rock Carlton supporters if it is a bit of a blowout. I hope it's not, but don't rock your support just because of the back of one game. But I'm going to go Richmond by about 5 goals. Bill?
Yeah, I'm smiling not because of your expert commentary, Matty, but I do love the Carlton narrative still. This is definitely got a chance to be different. I'll give them that. Yeah. But it is, it's 10 years of this year for Carlton. Voss is a different beast though. I can't see them. I can't see them falling into the same kind of soft holes that they have in the past. They've got the list. Now, having said that, I think Richmond come out really hard round 1 this year because they do have a bit of a point to prove. And as we'll get on to with our top 8s and predictions, I think they're the real, I don't know, from last year to this year, they're the real contender coming back into the fray. So I'd go with your tip there, Matty. I think they will comfortably kick away. I think they'll be up and about, especially round 1, the G, big crowd. Whilst Carlton have a lot of good things to look forward to, and hopefully this time for their sake, it does deliver over the next couple of years. I think it'll take a little bit more time to fall into place. And we saw last year, they were still very, very fragile in parts. And that they were extremely impressive in that Community Cup game. But when they did sort of have the game going the other way, they still let it go the other way. So I still think they need a little bit of time to keep building it all together. I think they'll be thereabouts this year, so it's not a disaster. But Richmond will come out and flex. Yeah,
I agree. Just on that, with Basher Hawley off the back flank there for Richmond, and Daniel Rioli should take his vision. And I think Ahmed Saad will be a beneficiary. I think over the last few years, the Carlton faithful have put players that are back flankers into the middle, and it just hasn't worked for them. But the one thing Vossi has worked on is their defensive side of the game, which was a real problem for them. They played a different defensive system to other teams. So, I think you'll see a different hardened outlook from outfit from Carlton this year. Let's move along to, and thanks to Big John O'Cooper down there in Tasmania. He was the president and playing coach of the Dingoes before I took over. So thanks for touching base there, Jono. We'll talk more about his Geelong Cats shortly, but St Kilda and Collingwood, this is a bit of an intriguing game. I don't rate either of these two teams, and I think they've been spoilt for riches with this particular time slot of the AFL program, round one. St Kilda are a bit of an unknown quantity, and I can't see Collingwood making huge improvements. They're going to blood a lot of youngsters, and they have got some quality youngsters. But I can't see this being it's an intriguing battle because there's a lot of unknown from both outfits. But I think that I'm not going to talk about this too much either, but I think St Kilda will come away with a victory, maybe around 3 goals, but it's probably not going to tell us a lot about either of those two sides, I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, so it's funny. You come last year's preseason, rewind to last year's preseason. St Kilda was one of those teams that everybody was all about. They were going to still get Hanbury back. I think they bought somebody in for last year on top of a team that had won a final against the Bulldogs, I think, and gone okay in their next final, and they just didn't show it. I still think that's an intangible. I think that they just didn't show when. I don't see them changing that in their current formation. Collingwood, I don't know. I haven't done my tips, my AFL Asia tips yet, but I might just go for the point of difference already in round one and actually tip the Pies, because I think they'll want to make a statement. They're a proud club. They were stung. Their top 8 players are still as good as any club's top 8 players. I just think they could come out on a decent stage. You're right. They don't necessarily deserve the Friday night billing, either of these clubs after last year. But I could see Collingwood coming out with a bit of a point to prove, similar to what they did to Melbourne in Buckley's last game last year. When they're all up and about, I think they're good enough. Is De Goey playing? He got off scot-free in the end, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and he's had those.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. He's had rib injury heading into the community series, but I think he did play last week, but not as much in the midfield as they earmarked him early in the summer before he went belly up.
Okay.
Over there in the US. If anyone's just wondering about the time slots, these are actually Vietnam times. So if you're thinking what's going on, the 3:10 start, or it's actually 7:10 in Melbourne. So
Southeast Asian, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's got a different feel about it.
It works for Jakarta, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. I think we're all the same time zone.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move.
But on. That's all I had on hand. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. And if people are going to go the point of difference tips like you, Bill, you're going to be an easy kill in the AFL Asia footy tip.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully I'll come to my senses before I actually submit. But don't mind a bit of controversy.
Yeah, that comes with you and your territory. Geelong and Essendon, this is going to be a ripping game.
Yes.
There's a lot of hype around Essendon. I'll talk more about my lack of hype for Essendon in more detail shortly. But Geelong... Got a lot to prove. This season in itself could go either way. They could advance back up the ladder, or they could fall away. And I'll tell you what, if they get a stack of injuries, which they did going into the finals, they had a lot of players like Stewart. They really missed him in the finals because he's basically their quarterback out of defence. They really missed his drive and had a few blokes that were crooking and a few injuries. But aging list, I think they'll be too good for Essendon this week. I'm going to go about 4 or 5 snags there. I think they'll do it pretty comfortably. Essendon, just interesting. Watch this space on them, but we'll talk more about them in detail as we progress through the podcast. Bill, over to you.
Yeah. Given that we are going to go through our top 8s in a minute, I'm going to stop commenting too much on the teams themselves. Cats, every year we think they're too old, and every year they front up. Essendon, might be a bit fragile still. I'm going to tip the Cats.
Okay, Cats and Cats here. Okay, let's move along over to the Battle of the Bridge, GWS and Sydney. Both these teams are primed for finals. Both have had a terrific summer in their preparations for the 2022 campaign. This could go either way. This is a real flip of the coin game. And if you have a look at the name of the stadium, I can't remember off the top of my head the actual naming, but they're going back to the Olympic Stadium Homebush, and that was expected to never be used again, that stadium. So interesting to see what crowd they get in Sydney. Hopefully they get 40,000 plus, But it'll look pretty empty given it's 100,000 if there is 40. Hopefully they can get 50 plus, which would be above and beyond what they could get at the Giants Stadium or at the SCG. But flip of the coin, I'm just going to go on basically on my ladder position. I'm going to go with the Swannies here. We'll talk more about Buddy as well later on, but this could be huge. Huge game. I think this is actually one of the best games of the round.
Yeah, there's no love lost. And I think Toby Green missing in a bit of a grudge match is never good for the Giants. So I'll go with this. I wonder if being on that I think the Homebush Stadium's pretty big. I wonder if that helps Buddy find a few deeper pockets and have a chance to kick 5 as opposed to the G or somewhere like that where Sam Taylor could wrap him up a bit more. I got no idea really, but I just wonder. So yeah, Swans.
Yeah, Swans. And let's hope Buddy can kick his 1,000th goal. I don't think this will ever be achieved again in the game's history. This next game, Brisbane and Port Adelaide, both finished top 4. Both have had home preliminary finals the previous 2 seasons, and both have actually just fallen on the sword and bowed out in straight sets. So there's a lot at stake here, and a lot of these games in round 1 are against similar opposition. So you look throughout the whole schedule, the whole rounding schedule, most of the teams are going to be nearby each other, except for the game after the next couple of games, particularly the Adelaide Fremantle. But this is a really intriguing game. I think Brisbane will make a statement up here. I think Port were one of the poorest teams in the pre-season. They got thumped up there against the Gold Coast Suns in a slippery conditions game up on the Gold Coast at Metricon a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And they didn't really play that well. I watched most of the first half when they played against the Crows in the pre-season in the only community series, and it wasn't until the third quarter they really got on top of them. It was quite blustery conditions going across the ground, but Port, for me, just really haven't hit the ground running at all this year, which is a pretty poor sign given the way that they finished when the Bulldogs absolutely thumped them in the home preliminary final. I'm going to go Brisbane by plenty.
Okay. I'm fascinated by your... I mean, if you look at Geelong, they had a pretty similar pre-season as well. I think that teams that go deep into September are always going to look rough in the pre-season games. So they've gone and played with a cake of soap and then on a windy day against Adelaide. Adelaide can play against anyone for half. I think Port will be okay, but I don't think they'll go to the Gabba and beat Brisbane first up. Brisbane look like they've had a nice, tidy pre-season. No calamities like last year. So as we'll probably touch on, they've got it all in front of them, and I think they'll come out swinging. So I'd take the Lions, but not as... I don't see Port being as alarming as you're starting to hint at.
Well, I've already put a hint because you know what's going on. But
sorry.
This is a bottom 4 matchup. Both of these teams are going to struggle throughout the season. I originally had... I've done my tips already on our AFL Asia tipping competition with ESPN.
You can change them, I think.
I'm going to change them. Yeah, I did have Hawthorn here, and I'm going to change my tip to North Melbourne. I just think they've had David Noble in charge of the second full pre-season. I know he came in late in his first pre-season, but yeah, they've got a pretty young list, Hawthorn, and I just think North Melbourne's just a little bit ahead in their development, and they'll get the chocolates in round 1. I'm not convinced by either team, but this one's for you, Kero. North Melbourne by about 2 snags.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I just think they'll be a little bit more into their system and everything in place. The Hawks looked pretty average in that game against Collingwood until the last 3 quarters of a 6-quarter game, which seems fairly fixed to sell memberships. So yeah, I just don't think they've had enough time yet to factor everything. They've probably got to go and find another 5 or 6 players over the next couple of years as well, which North Melbourne have started doing. Whether they've got them or not is debatable. They look good at the back end of last year, North. So did Hawthorn for that matter, but they've had more change. So yeah, out of the blocks, I'd say North.
Yeah, good call. Both gone North there. My Crows come up against Fremantle in the geez, that's an early game for you guys. Hawthorn and North Melbourne. Get out of bed and it's 9:10 and you got a game.
Yeah, they're good those Sunday mornings.
Yeah. So Adelaide take on Fremantle in the second game on Sunday. Adelaide have had a pretty decent pre-season. They'll get a few players back in Crouch. Miller, I'm not sure whether he's going to get selected or not. He played a full game in the reserves at Amy Stadium, the old Amy Stadium, the old football park. But Fremantle looking pretty good at the moment. They've had a decent summer. Not so convincing in their second, which is unbelievable. They played 2 derbies in a row. But I think Fremantle, if they're going to make a bit of a fist of it this year, they need to win these early games if they're going to be a finals contender. So I'm going to go Freo with no major conviction. I wouldn't be surprised if the Crows win, but you've got to be a realist here, and I think Freo should get the job done.
Yeah, so I still remember the Crows came out and shocked Geelong last year. Just weren't sharp enough, so they just did that with hunger. And I wouldn't be surprised if they come hard again this year. Tex Walker was playing the best footy of his career at that stage, though. This year he's in a pretty different boat. So you'd think Freo, they would hope to be making finals. Fife's supposedly fit as a fiddle. Brayshaw's ready to burst. So Darcy's going to take the league by storm this year. He was incredible last year. So I'd expect Freo. But, like you said, they'd have to be careful.
Yeah. This last game of the first round of the 2022 season is rather intriguing. Given the circumstances the West Coast Eagles have found themselves in, they're coughing a bit like Bill. There's a bit of a COVID bug that's going through the squad as we speak. They've got, I haven't seen a club this decimated by injuries going into round 1 ever in the history of my time of watching AFL footy. It's quite phenomenal. And they could possibly tap into their COVID top-up players in the first round of the season. So I need to go and change my tips. I tipped West Coast at the start of the week. I'm going to change that to Gold Coast. I think Gold Coast have had a brilliant summer under Stewie Dew. They're really good at this time of year too. Gold Coast, the first 4 rounds of the season, I'd love to see their record over the past. Probably the past 5 years. It's been really exceptional. I think the Gold Coast will go and get it done, and if they don't, it's probably theirs to lose, if anything. Even though West Coast are playing at home. Yours, Bill?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'll have to actually look at the teams. If I won't get a look at the teams before I tip, will I? To have a look at just how West Coast front up. But yeah, I'll go with the Suns, particularly because they do have that 4, 5, 6 weeks. They've done that since formation. Even in the Gary Ablett days, they'd be strong until he did his shoulder or whatever would happen, and then they'd sort of limp home. So they should come out and be firing on all cylinders. It's a real shame they don't have is it Max or Ben King up front for this season, because I think that could shore them up as a full squad with Witts back in the ruck. If you could pick a team to play round 1, it's definitely West Coast. I'll tip the Suns.
All right, good call. Let's go through our season predictions now, Bill. You've got a few things on the screen that you want to pop up. So we've got our season predictions. We've both chipped away at this for a while. I've got some extra details that I'll go through later about breakout years and career resurgences, and who's in the twilight zone and who's on the last chance saloon. But this is our top 8. We've probably gone into a little bit too much detail in our predictions for round 1.
Yeah.
But let's just have a look at the top 4. We're pretty similar there. We've got both Melbourne at the top, and we know that both Brisbane are going to be around the mark. We've got Richmond in there to make a fair jump from 2021 to 2022, given their injuries, and they basically just put the white flag up in the second half of the year. I've got Sydney and Richmond, so it's very rare to see 2 teams come from outside the top or anywhere outside of the 8 or inside the 8 and jump in at the same time. So I've gone 2 this year. I did read a story going back, I think every year since 2015, someone from outside the 8 has made it into the top 4. I should have brought those details with me, but that's fine. So you've gone the Bulldogs there, Bill, but then I've got them in the next line coming in 5th. So, yeah, I think we're pretty stock standard across the board there. If you have a look a little bit further down, I've got the Gold Coast ranked a little bit higher, and we both got Geelong in a similar position. So we got them sliding somewhat. I did have Port Adelaide in my top 8 until about an hour before the podcast, and I've whacked in Carlton. I'm just a little bit curious as to where Port Adelaide's midfield's going to go. The reason is not that it didn't really have too much of a difference last year, but they planned a bit of their future around Rocklift. Trav Boak has been a pillar in their midfield, but they're going to put Butters and Rosie in there, and that's going to be the difference as to whether they take the next step or they slide. And I just think Port's had their time in the sun the last couple of years to really make a fist of it and win a premiership. Hey, they could still win a premiership. They still could finish top 4, but usually 2 teams slide out of the 8. So I've got Rich Essendon sliding out, and I see you have 2, Bill. Just on Essendon,
Yeah.
I just don't think they've got enough goal kicking power up forward. And if you're relying on 2 metre Peter to get you into the finals, I just don't think he's going to do it alone. And Jakey Stringer's had a pretty restricted pre-season. So, yeah, I think Essendon made it 1 year early. And there's been talk about Mick Moldhouse tipping him to win the premiership. Well, he just wanted to make some headlines, I think, more than anything, Mick. Maybe early. So there's a few differences in there. We've switched around Sydney and the 4 there as well. But generally, we're pretty similar. All right, let's keep moving. Any comments there, Bill, on the top 8?
Yeah, so I couldn't knock the Bulldogs out of the top 4. Don't forget they were top 2 all last season until the Josh Bruce thing, and they did seem to lose their balance, and obviously they got it back together. So I feel like they'll be solid throughout the season. Sydney still a bit younger. I do think losing Hewitt was a bit of a shame for them, because they need younger group. They need that depth. But they'll be okay. But I just don't think top 4 yet. Probably the asterisk on that would be if Buddy Franklin does go and play most of this season, which he sort of has been threatening to, for the last couple of years, and gets right back up and about, it changes the face of them as a threat. They become a real top shelf threat. So if he's on the park, 15 rounds or more, then yeah, maybe they can go that sort of top 4. But I think the Bulldogs would be well up there. I should have also mentioned that in your notes that you sent me, you'd put in no particular order, which hasn't made it onto this actual slide. So I don't think Richmond finished second. Actually, I'd probably say Brisbane and I'd say Richmond is more likely 4th than second, just looking at that. So these are just the 4 that we put in the brackets as opposed to a specific order, which fell away when we put it into this slides. So yeah, that'd be it.
Yeah, my concern with the Bulldogs, and I just heard a bit of information around this morning, is that the premiership year in 2016, they come from 7th, I think, and they come from 5th last year. So they were basically in the top 2 and got bungled out late in the season to 5th. So they've shown that they can come from outside the top 4. The last time that they finished in the top 4 was 2010 under Rodney Eade, and the previous time before that was 1998. So they've been starved from success, but it just doesn't guarantee them to, if they need to make top 4, to go anywhere at the pointy end of the season. But for them, for a pass mark, you'd hope it is top 4 for the Bulldogs. I just think Sydney have really regenerated their midfield. They've got a lot of players who I'll talk about who are in breakout contention, who will, that's the reason why they're going to be top 4, is because they've got a new generation of midfielders, a lot of local talent, academy players. And we've spoken about Richmond a little bit earlier, but GWS are a bit of an interesting one. I think if they get knocked around with injuries in their midfield, they could slide real quick. And that's the case for any of the teams inside the top 8. If you looked at last year, West Coast were sort of looking as a lock because they'd won the premiership in 2018. They come fifth, and fifth, 2019, 2020. And then they got a stack of injuries and they missed a boat and they finished ninth, I think, last year. So injuries can really are going to impact one of these 8 sides and it will flip the switch on whoever could drop out. And I guess that's the difference with our sides that aren't making it. If you pick them in bottom 4 or even 5th or 6th bottom, any of those teams that get decimated could fall off the face of the earth real quick as well. So let's move along to the next side there, Bill.
Yep.
Okay, so I've got 4 teams in the hunt. We've both got Essendon and we've both got St Kilda. I'm not so bullish on St Kilda. I think they could actually slide into the bottom 6 and be replaced by one of those teams.
Bring the Gold Coast up.
I'd love to see the Gold Coast get amongst it.
Yeah, if everything went right. Yeah.
Out of those sides in the hunt, St Kilda's got the worst depth out of all of those sides. Port's obviously very unlucky not to be in my 8, and so is Essendon.
Yeah.
But Fremantle on a bit of a... I just find that Justin Longmuir's got a lot out of that squad. I don't think they're a top 8 squad, but he's been able to implement a really good game plan, and he's been able to get the best out of his players. So Fremantle are knocking on the 8, but they're not necessarily a top 8 team. What's your thoughts on yours in the hunt? Do you think Essendon can actually make it, or do you think I just believe they just don't have enough goal kickers? They got a really good centre line. Like their midfield depth is true. Got a lot of good back flankers and defence is pretty solid. But I just think they lack, pure forward line that can kick them a winning score week in, week out, which is what the AFL season is. It's a grind.
Yeah, they'd have to find some both ends of the field, really. Yes, they've got. I mean, back flankers don't really play as defenders anymore. You need 4 really solid defenders still. I'm not sure if Essendon are strong enough up front or down back. Similar to Melbourne a couple of years ago, and that year when May and Lever were out, and so we hadn't really seen what they were trying to bring in. But they were already that crack midfield they were okay running in waves with the footy. But as soon as it went the other way, everybody just... So, yeah, I think Essendon might have overperformed a little bit last year. Got a bit of a run going. Stringer started having a few good games. And I'm not saying he can't do that again. I think Parrish is a one of the better players in the league as he keeps developing. But I just think that they're needing those few... last year, whenever I watched Essendon, they were... and I think he's retired, but Cale Hooker was their key position player. Like they just put him, which was, it was just beyond. That was unfair on him, and it just showed that they were still kind of lacking that imposing sort of big players on the game. I don't think that they can go deep without them. So they'll be thereabouts, but I think they might drop a few stupid games this year. They might have won a few. Pinched a few last year, and they might do the opposite this year, which tends to happen when the team's thereabouts. But I think they're only a couple of players away. I think Carlton is that one that no injuries, and Carlton should play finals. St Kilda, I put them in the hunt just because I can still remember last year looking at it, and I can't even rewind and fully understand it. But it looked like they had it all in front of them coming into last season. They had a good group of young players. They'd brought a few in, and none of it really came to fruition. So I'm just thinking that whatever it was that I could see this time last year must still exist somewhere. So maybe it pops up. But the one that I would say from the bottom 6 that might have a chance would be the Gold Coast. I can't see West Coast getting through everything that they're facing. I think Collingwood fades when things get tough. They still need 1 or 2 more years in a new system. So only the Gold Coast would be my real surprise that could jump into the hunt and then perhaps beyond. But even that, I think, is a bit of a stretch.
Right, just an update in the cricket over in Karachi. Australians
declared
declared 2 for 97. They just got a breakthrough as you were rambling on there, Bill.
Oh,
So Inam Huck has been dismissed LBW to Nathan Lyon. He actually faced 18 balls for his dismal 1, so they're really on the back foot in the second dig. So the score update, 5.5 overs into the second dig, Pakistan 1 for 2. They've gone through the bowling lineup pretty quickly too. So Stark and Cummins open up with two overs each, with 2 maidens each. Swepson's bowled his 1 over for 2, and Gary Lyon gets his wicket with his 5th ball of his first over. So,
jeez.
yeah, their backs
Tough
against
for
the
me.
wall. They're on the ropes, Pakistan, and I'm looking forward to tuning in before I got my Panasonic lesson tonight. Yeah, I think the bottom 6, Bill, pretty self-explanatory, all at different stages of their developing list demographic. I'd love to see Gold Coast really make some inroads in their development as a club. They really need to. And just back on St Kilda, very good at selling false hope to their members. But they have been successful. 127 wooden spoons in their VFL AFL history. So at least they've won something. Haven't won a flag since 66, but they won 27 wooden spoons. Those bottom 6 could finish in any particular order. Maybe we've sold West Coast, really down the river for a bottom 4. Maybe they are competitive and they do finish about 12th, but or 13th below, but I can't really see it happening. And it's almost they're almost ready to press the reset button on their list. Yep. So I think there's going to be a lot of casualties out of their list this year.
With West Coast last year, I know that injuries got tough for them, but they seem to be the sort of group that drops its bundle especially quick. They don't when the chips are down, they don't dig in and get a few against the odds wins. When the chips are down, they just acknowledge the fact the chips are down and there's nothing they can do about that. So this year it just looks like the chips are really down and yeah, once that reset button goes, then everything's out the window with the bathwater a little bit. So, Tim Kelly would be wondering, what the hell have I done with my career? But it's a really dire situation they're in, because those stars are really top of the league stars, McGovern, Natanui, now Tim Kelly. And so, yeah, if you can't get a premiership in your next 4 years, wow, it's a few big moments coming for the club.
Yeah, they're going to be in a world of pain, and I think they expected to get another flag off after they won the 2018 premiership. So,
well, if you think about it, last year they had a final series in their backyard, and they just sat the bed, couldn't show up for it.
Nah. Let's keep moving along there, Bill. What's on our next slide there, please? All right, so we've got our premiers and wooden spooners. No big surprise that Bill has gone back-to-back Melbourne premierships. And
I didn't want to.
Supporter, I have no qualms with you picking Melbourne. I've gone with Brisbane. I just think Brisbane are prime.
I agree.
Yep. They've made the top 4 the past 2 or 3 years now. And maybe the first year was before their time. And having the home finals, it was a bit of a learning curve. And Richmond were at the peak of their powers when they got beaten by them up there at home. Last year, they just sort of faded in the second when it was in the business end of the season. But I'm going Brisbane. I just think that list demographic, everything's pointing in the right direction. A lot of players have got the right amount of games into their belts. My wooden spooners this year, Hawthorn, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Adelaide, North Melbourne, Gold Coast, Collingwood. Don't think West Coast would slide that much. Although they did win I think they did win the wooden spoon the year that they got Nick Natanui, maybe. Not sure. Maybe I'm not sure. I think they got pretty close to wooden spoon around 2008. But my Brownlow top 4, the Bont, and this is any of them could win it. The Bont, Lockie Neal, Paddy Cripps, Clary Oliver, and I've got Sam Walsh there. Currently got that syndesmosis injury. If he can get back by round 3, I think if it's round 4 or 5, it's just a bit too far, given how close the Brownlow medal counts are. So yeah, it's primed for a huge year, and all of those stars there. You'd hate to see the Bont not get a Brownlow in his career. Lockie Neal already won one in 2020, and Cripps is, like we said, I think he's back, and Clary Oliver just eats footballs for breakfast, that bloke.
Yeah.
Bill, over to you and your award winners and predictions.
Yeah, so more the point of differences, I think. I think that Fife is back up and about. And I just think that Freo are primed to have a really good mid-season year. Like Darcy, breakout year last year, and I think he'll really become one of those premier ruckmen. Fife, I saw him say the other day that he's going to really stick to what he's good at, which is hunting the footy. He just can't kick for goal. I had too many multis fail last year because he couldn't get a goal despite having 3 or 4 shots. So him being up the ground around it, Brayshaw's going to come on, but Fife will still be the big dog when things are there to be done. Parrish, I thought, was incredible last year, and in a similar thing, I think Essendon with those numbers around the ball mean it's pretty hard to set a proper tag on him. Yet I think he is still the vote catcher. And on the opposite side, I think Cripps will have a good year, but I'm not sure how good. But Walsh will come back at some stage and pinch his votes. And I think even if Walsh was to get back in round 3, they say he's a workhorse and he has been training the house down, but it's pretty hard to come into a season a few weeks behind and click straight into gear. So I think he cuts himself off from. I could be wrong, but you look at what happened to Matty Gale compared to his first few games and then coming back. It's just hard when you lose that body of work. So if he takes a few weeks to get back into gear, but then he starts pulling votes out, then it gets harder and harder for Cripps as well. So I think Oliver will do what he does. It's hard if Melbourne win a lot of games, it's hard to go past him, but he always competes with Gawn and Petrarca and everybody else. So maybe he doesn't get a Brownlow in his career if he stays in the same company. So if I had to pick one, I'd take Bont and Fife still, the older blokes, and then Parrish would be my young upstart chance.
Yeah, I actually think that Brayshaw will score more votes than Fife this year. I think he's going to be their best and first, but that's just my prediction.
Yep, fair enough.
All right, let's move to the next slide there, Bill. Okay, so we have the common medalist, the Rising Star Mark of the Year in gold here. So Jeremy Cameron come across on big dollars, cost the Geelong Footy Club all of the 3 first round draft picks that they got from Tim Kelly. They're giving them straight back to the GWS. So they've got Cameron here. If he's injury-free, he has to be very close. I was really surprised with Harry Mackay winning the Coleman last year. But, yeah, I'd love to see Buddy win it. But I think Cameron's ready to I think he's already won one at GWS, but that was a fair while back, and maybe in his 2nd or 3rd year. But Jeremy Cameron, for me, is the Coleman. The Rising Star is a really interesting one this year with Horn Francis going in at pick number 1, where Dacos could have easily been the pick 1. I think North Melbourne did the right thing and got Horn Francis. Dacos, for me, is going to be absolutely huge. So I think it'll be Dacos, followed by Horn Francis, Ward from Hawthorn, and Josh Rochelle. It's just interesting enough, I've got Josh Rochelle there to kick the goal of the year. He's an absolute excitement machine. We've had some pretty big, what would you call them? Some pretty big players over the year that have taken the crowd as a cult figure. I think this guy could be as big as Tony Modra. I know Eddie was pretty huge. Rashudo was pretty big in his day. Andrew McLeod, but this guy is going to be massive for the Crows. And I've got the astronaut Norton to take the mark of the year. And I think for him, for Western Bulldogs to make the top 4, he needs to kick 50. But he's just primed to take a hanger on someone's head. And I think he's capable, not just taking the mark of the year, he's capable of taking a mark of the century. That's how good his marking capabilities are. So, I think that's Big Norton to take the mark of the year, and the rest are pretty self-explanatory. Over to you, Bill. Oh, you've got some interesting ones there.
Yeah, I just wanted to try go different. I tried to go past Horn Francis, but I think with those 2, I'll start with King. So for the Saints, like I said, I'm still thinking there's a pulse there. There was something 2 years ago, and With Steele and what's the ruckman? Hopefully feeding a bit of ball. I think Max King will get most of the opportunity for the Saints. Yeah, sorry, Rowan Marshall. I think King will get most of the opportunity, and he'll be a year better. Those big players come into their own. So he was already. Both King brothers last year were kicking in the 40s, and I think they were missing a few. So that's why I'm really disappointed that Ben couldn't have another crack at it this year. He probably would have been my pick if he was up and about. So I hope Max King can have a big year. I like watching the two boys go at it. Horn Francis, I purely just a bit bigger body already. Had a year in the Sandful last year when Dacos was watching the Victorian Premier do his press conferences every day. Flying Ryan, I think West Coast needs something from this year. So similar to Norton, right? He's going to take some. That's a given. I had to ask a few people if, as far as I can tell, nothing's gone wrong with him yet. But watch this space. He who knows? But yeah, hopefully he's still up and about. And for goal of the year, I just tried to think who, and the only person came to the top of my mind was Cozzy Pickett. He had a few contenders last year, and I'd see him doing the same this year.
Yeah, pretty good call. He is actually going to get a goal of the year at some stage, and he's
it's got to happen
for sure. Now, I'm not sure whether you've got any information up about the next few lists, Bill, considering how big they were.
For the slides.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's just take that slide down. For those footy nuts and those footy diehards like myself who live and breathe footy, I just love following the game so much that I've actually come up with a few different lists. So I'll start off with my breakout of the year. I've got Mark of the Year there, Flea Waitman. Yeah.
That'd be
he's up there as
the
well.
son of.
No, he's not the son of. I don't think he's even related to him.
Yeah, oh, really?
Not related to. No. Otherwise, he would have gone father son. Okay, so my major breakout years this year is Zach Butters, Zach Bailey from Brisbane, Connor Rosie, Tarrant Thomas from North Melbourne, Matty Rao. I think his trajectory, he was already going after 4 games. He'll get back on that trajectory. Noah Anderson, also from the Gold Coast, and Jack Lukosius. So they got those 3 players over 2 years. And Isaac Rankin, I'm not sure whether he's quite ready for a breakout, but those 4 players were brilliant. Yeah, this is a really good comment here from, Stuart Dew's actually been playing Lukosius at centre forward, so he kicked 3 goals in their win against Geelong last Monday week. So, yeah, he's gone centre-half back. I tend to agree. Well, he was actually playing centre-half forward most of his draft year for the Woodwest Torrens Eagles. So he's a natural forward, Lukosius, who can go back. Now, Andrew Brayshaw at Fremantle had a breakout year maybe 2 years ago. I think he'll go even further this year. Fremantle have also recruited Will Brodie. Basically got given to the Fremantle Dockers and that first-round draft pick that they were given as a bit of a salt and steak knives from the AFL. They gave that to Fremantle, and so he's actually been huge in the pre-season, Will Brodie, and he's got some good numbers coming out for super coaches. Caleb Sarong with Chera moving to Carlton, I think he'll have a breakout, and Hayden Young is a really attacking back flanker for Fremantle. A lot of injuries in his first couple of years in the AFL. Another one from North Melbourne is Luke Davis Udiaki, LDU. He's shown signs that he's probably had to build his body. His natural tank had a bit of baby fat, maybe a little bit like Clary Oliver. It's taken him a while to grow into his body, develop the power. He's got the natural footy brain to dominate games. And I suspect he'll go huge this year. Mitch Geordiades from Port Adelaide, I think the high flyer will get a lot more consistency in his game. And with Charlie Dixon out of the lineup at the moment, he'll need to take a step forward in his development and get a breakout year. Mitch McGovern left the Adelaide Crows to Carlton on big money, I think $800K per year, has not delivered, and they've moved him to a back flank, playing a similar role to his brother as the intercepting defender. He's going to be huge this year, and he's going to play an important role for Carlton. And if he can sustain that pre-season form, that's the reason why one of the reasons why they're going to make finals, as well as that improved midfield.
Can I jump in on that one? He's only going to be huge if the rest of their backline is good enough to let him play that game.
Yeah.
You know, like when Jake Lever can't get free and has to man up, he's one of the worst defenders in the AFL.
He gets exposed,
it's only when he's completely free of mind and, you know, being able to do what he wants. And that means the other 5 have to be doing their job. Maybe a couple of forward flankers even have to be gut running pretty well. So if Carlton don't have that down pat, I think in that scratchy the other week, where everyone got excited about McGovern, I think he may have, I didn't watch the game, I was at work, but I was watching it out of the corner of my eye. I think he may have been somewhat accountable for Bailey Fritz, who just cruised around and kicked 5 goals while he took his 10 or whatever intercept marks. Now, if Carlton can't get him, then, you know, if they can't make him free without getting hurt on the flip side, then it's all for nothing. So I
don't think they would.
That was one
playing on each other too much.
Well, he was the free one due to the 2 were free because of each other. So Carlton will have to be good enough to. You can play an intercept defender and give him freedom, but someone's got to do the dirty work.
Yeah, agreed. So let's get back to it. So former number 1 draft pick Andrew McGrath, I think he'll have a huge year. He broke out a couple of years ago, but he's had a few knee injuries in previous years that has sort of stopped him from really completely breaking out. It'd be interesting to see where he actually goes from that back flanking role to a permanent midfield position. Tom Green from the GWS, got a lot of midfielders around him, but he's ready to go bang. You've mentioned Max King. I think he's going to have a huge year as well and break out, get his goal-kicking woes behind him, which he did in the second half of the year. Now, the next few players are all Sydney players, and this is the reason why they're going to go top 4. So Nick Blakey, Ollie Florent, former pick 11 in the draft there in 2015 from memory. Justin McInerney's gone to a wing. Will Hayward is an exciting half forward who almost played every game for, I think, 50 in a row, and then he's had quite a few injuries the past 2 years. Toole, Warry, athletic forward, and Dylan Stevens, former number 5 draft pick for Sydney. He'll have a breakout year, and he's in my super coach on the bench at the moment. Braden Pruce, what an idiot, got suspended after tackling. Got that tackling into the ground. I think it was the ruck contest, and disappointed he's got suspended because I think he'll make a huge fist of it. I think he's played 4 games in his career.
Yeah,
it's at his 3rd club. He's not on the last chance salute, but he's due for a breakout. If he's ever going to make it, it's this year. Darcy
pretty fragile though.
Crows. Crows have got the Demons fitness guru, and I think Darcy Fogarty and Harry Schoenberg will be the 2 beneficiaries of that pre-season. Ed Richards from the Bulldogs. I heard on the radio one of the Bulldogs players, it might have been Bont, last week saying that Ed Richards is the one that's shown the most from the younger brigade coming through. So as far as career resurgence, Paddy Cripps, Stephen Coniglio, Tim Kelly, I think will win their best and fairest despite being out with COVID this weekend. Lockie Whitfield's had a lot of interesting injuries the past couple of years. Cam Rayner coming back from an ACL. Paddy McCartan will put those concussion issues at the back of they'll be gone for him, and I think he'll have a terrific year and a career resurgence year and potentially a breakout year too. Adam Treloar, 2nd year in Bulldogs colours. I think he'll have a career resurgence. Charlie Curnow, the same, in his 2nd year back from major knee surgery. Jared Witts comes back from an ACL. Jordan De Goey comes back from a long way back, and I think he'll have a huge year. Whether he actually goes really bang, it's entirely up to him. Rowan Marshall broke out 3 years ago, and I think the baton's well and truly handed to him. I doubt Paddy Ryder's going to have much of a say as a 33-year-old at the moment. Isaac Heaney, self-explanatory, does get more midfield time, but he'll still dominate up forward. He just needs to stay injury-free. And Wayne Miller from the Crows played 2 games in 2020, none in 2021, and former first-round draft pick. He's ripe to go, and hopefully he has a really good run with injuries. Now, to the twilight zone and going out with a bang. Buddy Franklin, really, he'll kick his 1,000th goal, but I think he'll have another terrific year. Don't think he even played a game in 2020, but had a terrific year last year, and really looking forward to watching my favourite player of all time kick his 1,000th. in the coming weeks. Scotty Pendlebury's moved to a back flank, as has Joel Selwood. Joel Selwood's gone to a half-forward flank, and Josh Kennedy and Callum Ward have gone to their back flanks as well. So Phil Davis is just a battler, and he's in the twilight zone as well, and hopefully he can get a bit of success on his way out. Last chance saloon. Tyson Sengel been given a lifeline at a third club at the Cats. Sam May's a former teammate of mine. We played in a grand final together in 2011. Been on Port's list for his third year now. He's been moved to the rookie list, and he's a real fringe player, but got gifted a lot of games at the Brisbane Lions. I think he played 112 up there, and I'd be interested to see where he fits in Port's structure this year. Jared Pollock signed on big bucks at North Melbourne. I think he's in the fourth or the fifth year of that big deal. They tried to shift him in the pre-season to trade him. No one wanted a piece of him. Daniel Hennebury went over from Sydney on a pension check for 4 years. Hardly given anything to the Saints. Levi Casbolt given a lifeline. I think he's on a last chance saloon, but not much interest in him anyway. Dean Kent moved from Melbourne to St Kilda maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. Had a lot of injuries throughout his career, and I think this is his last chance, as is Stephen Motlop. Comes up against, he's a bit of a front runner. He kicks a lot of goals in that time of the game where everything's all over, or he just goes missing in key games. So a bit of an underwhelming career, I think, Stephen Motlop in some respects. Trent Dumont got a lifeline at Port Adelaide. Jack Newnes, one of Yoshi's favourite players. Don't rate him. He's on his last chance for me. As is Willie Rioli, and he's back after a suspension with drugs. Mason Cox, I can't believe he's still in the game, but he's on his last chance. Lewis Taylor, he won the Rising Star in his first season and moved to Sydney, and there wasn't much talk about it when he moved, and he's hardly given anything to Sydney, so he's on a last chance saloon, as is Ben Ronke. I think he kicked 8 goals in his second or third game for Sydney. Majak Daw, great to see him recover from his broken pelvis and broken leg and all of his mental demons, but he's on his last chance, I think, and as is Rory Thompson from the Gold Coast Suns. I think he's had 3 recons in coming back this year. And Paddy Ryder maybe should have hung up the boots, but they're battling away with an Achilles injury that he sustained at the back end of last season. So, Bill, there's a pretty huge amount of information that I've put together. Some of it probably not warranted, but for those that are a bit of a footy nerd, may be of interest to you. Now, got a new segment,
well,
Bill.
You missed Melbourne. I'll just add them in. Tom Sparrow breakout.
Who?
What? Tom Sparrow kicked a great goal in the third quarter off a step. Luke Dunstan from the Saints. You said whoever, Kent, went to the Saints and done nothing, but Dunstan was probably the Saints' best player every game he played last year, and they still got rid of him. So who knows if he can. He polled like 12 Brownlow votes, which just baffled me. But and I think he just didn't get on with the coach. So who knows how he goes in a new environment. I can't remember your other categories. I just wanted to chime in. But I just don't have the depth of knowledge about players in the other clubs like you do. But there was probably those two. I don't think... and Wiedemann is almost last chance saloon, at least at Melbourne. Been there long enough. If he doesn't somehow get into that forward line, then he's got to go elsewhere. And I mean, he just signed for another 2 years. But if he can't get a game, he's got to get a game. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, you've got to go somewhere else. You can't sit behind Ben Brown forever.
No, some of those last chance saloon players have got this year and maybe another year. They're contracted to their clubs like Mason Cox.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But I still believe that some of them shouldn't be there. All right, new segment brought to you by Tribal Sport.
All right.
Official, unofficial provider of all good things that come with footy clubs, Guernseys, shorts, you name it. Tribal Sport, get onto them. David Lake and the team will do a good deal. It's a new segment called Yes or No. Bill, we know that you can go off on a tangent, just go down rabbit warrens and such, so we're just going to get a yes or no answer. Question number 1, okay. Will Buddy kick his 1,000th goal this weekend?
No.
Should the AFL have scheduled Hawthorn versus Sydney round 2 clash in anticipation he doesn't kick it in round 1?
Yes.
Scott
Did they?
No, okay. They didn't. No, poor scheduling.
Yeah.
Yep. Question number 3. Scott Pendlebury has played 334 games. Is he capable of beating Brent Harvey's games record?
Of?
432 games.
No.
Okay.
If it was, yeah.
Well, it's yes or no. All right.
Yeah.
Will Stuart Dew coach the Gold Coast Suns in 2023?
Yes.
Will Alistair Clarkson coach in 2023?
Yes.
So I'll take out question 6. Will he coach the Gold Coast Suns?
Yes.
Right. Well, you said Stewie Dew's going to stay there.
You didn't say head coach. Assistant coach is still your job title. I think he'll stay on with Clarkson.
That'd be the best option. I think that's the way to go.
That's a win-win.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be a perfect partnership given their relationship as well.
Yep. If they're not already cooking that.
Yeah, well, hopefully they are, because Mr. Evans is their CEO, Mark Evans, and he was the guy that was the backbone behind all their admin when they won all their flags. Okay. Will West Coast use any of their COVID-19 top-up players in round 1?
No.
Did you know that only 10% of teams with a 0-2 record after the opening 2 games make finals?
Yes.
You tell them lies there.
I heard it this morning, same as you did.
Yeah, true. You must have been listening to the same guys.
Yeah.
King. Thanks, Kingy.
Yep.
All right. Will Nathan Buckley coach again in the future?
Yes.
Will he be the next coach of Port Adelaide?
Yes.
Did you know he played for Port Adelaide?
Yes.
Good. For those that don't know, he was the 1992 Magarey medalist of the SANFL when it was at its peak. Played in their premiership team as well after coming down from Darwin. Should the 2 grand finalists play a rematch every year as the opening game for each season?
Very solid, yes.
Yeah. Are you going to play in the Bali Masters?
Yes.
Will the Asian champs go ahead as planned in 2022?
Yes. As planned is a questionable word.
Well, plan doesn't mean there's plans in place.
In some form.
In some form, yeah. Okay. This is a basketball-related question. I'll finish off with one more footy. Will Josh Giddey win the NBA Rookie of the Year award?
No.
Okay. Last one.
Is he the favourite at the moment?
Oh, he's won 4 monthly awards in his.
Yeah, I had seen it.
Yeah. If Simon Goodwin was your coach, would you get on the beers with him?
Yes.
I'll just throw the stupid one in. We've been going for an hour and 22 minutes. So if you've been listening for the entirety of this podcast, and if you last this long once you listen to it in the future, thank you very much for joining us. But Bill, it's been brilliant catching up with you. Pretty detailed version of our predictions for 2022 and the AFL season ahead. Don't forget to join our AFL Asia Footy Tip competition. Check out our website and our socials for more details. And good luck to you and your team in the 2022 season, and also your club within Asia and throughout internationally. Billy Bang Bang Crang, thanks for joining us.
No worries, Matty.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how good's footy in Asia? Podcast 26. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, and bye for now.